tip for new players for solo queue could be, if you play a lot of different champs, I would say you should maybe focus on playing like 3 champs, so that you get to learn the champs and matchups, and therefore you can get better at the game and get elo from playing a few champs. Some traps you can fall into playing the game newly is you try to help your team too much. You need to know like your role in the game, and therefore if your team goes for something stupid, you should maybe sometimes think about, is this the right play, and do what you think is the best.
Down. The bases are coming through, but the Nexus has been exposed. The backdoor for Trix is gonna win them the game.
PlayStation there, giving us a little 101 session, which is nice to hear from him. So guys, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Vazor interview because I obviously didn't have time to discuss it just before the break. And I think very briefly, the main takeaway point has been, from his perspective, he thinks they're a top 2 team. I'm going to open this one open to, give it open to the field here. I'll start with you, Dan. Top 2 team, Tricked.
I mean, I think honestly, seeing how XL and Riddle played earlier today, I wasn't super convinced. I think top 2 might be a bit of a stretch. And I think our next game may give a bit more information. But ultimately, I feel like our preconceptions of the NLC, even last week when we were saying, top 4, these top 4 teams are above the rest, I don't think we can fully sort of cement that in as much because we've seen things open up a bit more.
And honestly, I get where he's coming from too, because we've seen these games, as Dan explains, that they haven't all looked as clean as we really expected them from it. The only clean game per se was maybe the first day of the week, where the skill gap was really huge between the 2 teams. But I feel like now that we're getting more tested matchups, I feel like it really shows how much some of these teams struggles. I can get the thought process behind Trick's mentality here, that they feel like they've played some really good games too. But granted, they've made some mistakes too that really shouldn't be made. So I feel like top 2 is a stretch, but I understand where he's coming from.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly feel the more games that we watch, that the only real massive difference in the league would just be M&M versus everyone else. I think that it's actually a much closer league than we thought it was going to be. And I can understand Trix feeling very confident at this point, especially when you look at Dusty's performance and knowing that Trix didn't just beat them through luck or through chance or through some sort of cheesy composition, but through straight up intelligent macro play around the map. They do look like a solid team. I was very encouraged by hearing how Wazel just kind of fit with Aaron and Champles in terms of personalities as well. I think that's the makings of a great team right there. There are many teams that have those similar bearings in the NLC right now. It's very competitive unless you're Eminem.
Yeah, and by the way, Gilbert was not laughing at Veteran's point. Apparently, I've just been pointed out that I am copyrighted on the stream overlay. Yeah, actually, it was copyrighting scoundrel. it's copyrighting scoundrel instead of scoundrel on Twitter, apparently. Hey, I'm just copyrighted. There we go. Look, guys, I think obviously it was great to have that discussion, but I think the elephant in the room now is that we have one of the biggest matches of the day coming our way, and it's going to be Fnatic versus Munster Rugby Gaming. 2 incredible looking teams with incredible rosters. I need to just leave this one to you guys to run through. What do we make of this matchup?
I mean, I feel like we've talked about this a bit off desk here too. I've put in my prediction that it is going to be Fnatic Rising. I saw that as I spoke up earlier today when we started the broadcast. This is really the meta that fits Dan. Beforehand, he was just complimented as a jungler who had incredible intelligent pathing style, but he couldn't really utilize that and actually gain the leads that he can now when we have Graves and Nidalee in the champion pool and in this meta too here. One of the faults that Fnatic Rising had when they played against Barrage was that their solo laners did not look up to par. But I do believe that we know these players can play great and have done it beforehand. I feel like it was the first game of the day, of the week too, and I think it's justified to say that they can recuperate and bounce back and actually play to the level, not necessarily to solo kill the opposing laner, but more to actually, oh sorry, I dropped my flag, but actually more to enable Dan in his jungle that as we've seen. Because we did see Matty was actually able with Bravado to actually get a lot of bot lane pressure with the Ezreal Karma lane, and that was why Dan was able to come in and actually destroy Flippers in this matchup that he did last week. So I am confident in Fnatic, even though I don't think it's going to be easy.
I will counter that by saying that a jungler can only really be as good as his laners enable him to be. And obviously there are champions in the meta right now, like Graves, like Nidalee, that may allow their junglers to be able to push through that. But ultimately, if you are pathing to a side of the map and the laners on that side mess up their matchup, then you're not going to be able to do anything on that side. And you are locked into a path that has become suboptimal. I worry because Magic Felix, Xmati, these guys, we do know that when push comes to shove, sometimes they don't pull through. The finals of the UKLC were one thing, but when we saw them heavily tested at EU Masters, we did see 2 of their worst performances of their careers even. And if ever there was a major game, it would be versus this Munster Rugby gaming roster. It's not just big names, but it's big names that have a player like Maxlaw who isn't playing for that jungle matchup. He's playing to facilitate these lanes. And when these guys are put under that much pressure, will they falter? Well, they faltered yesterday with nowhere near that much pressure. Maxlaw won't be removed from the map as easily as they were last week. But in this game in particular, I can see Maxwell not really caring if he ends up getting free quadranted, so long as he's helping his lane steamroll ahead, and that will cascade into preventing them from gaining the advantages that he's able to beforehand. I'm not even sure if his laners will be able to do much of it either.
And I think an important factor as well is not just the jungle discrepancy, where obviously Dan has been formidable, but Maxwell paying more for his lanes. But also, I feel like in the bot lane, particularly in the support role, I think Heaver was a massive force for Munster, and I think he's a really talented player. I'd argue best support in the league. I think he can be a massive factor here. If they find an advantage in the bot lane, he will make his pressure felt in the entire map, and it's going to shut down Dan even more so. Something we saw from Dan last split was him trying to pair up with Bravado to enact pressure. If that is denied just because of the difference between Bravado and Heaver, then it really doesn't matter what Dan can try and do, because he will just be shut down in every area of his jungle and he won't be able to find any pressure.
And I do agree with that point that Hiva is an incredible support, but I also do agree with the point that I'm making here that Karma Israel is one of these factor lane where it doesn't really matter this kind of matchup, especially because Hiva's been known to be that guy that can come out of the map and influence his laners and the other side part of the map. But if you're pushed down into your own lane by a lane that Karma Israel, for example, but he's also just an enchanter meta at the moment. If you just ban out the Thresh, we've seen it in this meta so often now, I feel like you come down to the ADs too. And if you don't have a jungle pressure to enable that too, I feel like Dan can get the upper hand if they play it out passively. Because as a veteran mentioned, Maxlaw is an extremely selfless jungler, at least for what we saw so far. But I also feel like that gives room to Dan to actually just do what Dan does. Punish when the enemy jungler comes in and doesn't clear his own jungle path incorrectly and try to help his laners. And that's where I think Fnatic will get a lead, and it's going to be through Dan.
I mean, obviously we're incredibly excited about this. There's lots to talk about, but I've been told the draft is ready to go between Fnatic and Munster Rugby Gaming. We're going to go to a quick break, and when we're back, we're diving straight in. We're into draft. It is the big one. Fnatic versus Munster Rugby Gaming, a real battle of the potential top end of the table here. Thresh and Taric also banned straight off the bat. So Thresh, I'm assuming general good ban, but also especially for Hiva, and Taric obviously for Bravado here.
I mean, one of the best Taric players in the West. He is the guy that always takes Aftershock on Taric rather than Guardian. He is a Taric master. Twisted Fate also is Magic Felix's pick from the other day. Obviously, I didn't really watch that game too closely if they're banning it now, but it's a really, really generally good blind pick, and it also does open up the possibility of a Kalista on red side for them if they don't think Fnatic Rising can pick it first on blue.
I was going to say that because right now we have a lot of priority picks still open, and with the TF ban coming out, it does really open up for Kalista here. Volibear being banned too. They really don't want that first pick. We haven't seen it with much success so far, but we do still have Aphelios, Ezreal, and Kalista of the AD pool open here. Not speaking of the junglers so far too.
I mean, the interesting thing to me is the Syndra blue side ban, because I know Magic Felix can play it, and I believe Xmadi probably would be able to actually flex a bot as well. So does make me wonder, and they're going to prioritize the Varus for the first pick, which we have seen slip down in priority somewhat today. Does have nerfs in the current patch, but still powerful, and it does give a lot of tools for Maddie to play through bot lane and apply a lot of pressure.
I mean, I hope there's a plan here, because otherwise my predictions are going south for sure with the Varus first pick. They have opted into the Kalista, so the TF ban works out for them, but there's so much priority on the Varus. It's a ridiculously cheap champion to get to their item spikes. It's so difficult to punish as a result, even if you have the Kalista. I really hope Munster Rugby Gaming have a plan.
I don't know if I like this Lee Sin yet. I don't know if it's just because I saw it earlier today with not much impact, but we do see it coming together with a Karma. I feel like this is a good pick up though, because it really enables for the flex too if you want that here in your draft, but it also enables that if this Karma does go down in support, you are seeing that we have Karma with a lot of possibilities to push down in this bot lane, and you just want this Varus actually, his laning phase to be over, his items are really cheap, and you don't want to play into this Kalista. I can see Veteran seems kind of sad here.
Well, I can see the grades kind of working out, but it's not like Karma Varus. 100% going to be able to maintain priorities on Kalista set for the rest of the game. Those guys can take very, very heavy trades very early on to turn the matchup, even if just purely looking at wave clear. Obviously, there's benefits to the left, but it's not going to be that. It will be the Blitzcrank, which is actually better for Fnatic Rising if they do want to execute like a Graves.
That's hype.
Yeah.
That's hype.
I like it a lot.
I think a big factor for me for the Blitzcrank was trying to throw off the sort of laning prowess off the Varus and the Karma, because as much as they can trade heavily in the AD levels, if they do achieve priority and they poke them down, if Munster Rugby Gaming starts calling in Max Law to assist with the lane, it becomes very telegraphed for Dan to go for a counter gank, or potentially at least punish by taking an opposite quadrant of the jungle.
I also think the Blitzcrank gives Hiva a lot of room in mid to late game scenarios. They are banning the Morgana. They are aware that the Karma can continue to be a flex pick towards the mid lane in that regard. But I love to see Hiva on these kinds of champions. He can also punish Bravado very much if he was to overstep with the Karma. They're trying to pigeonhole him into the Karma on support right now. I don't necessarily think these are wasted bans.
And Blitzcrank's also the kind of guy to nullify the shields coming out from Karma too, so you got that going for you too, while being a big threat against Enchanters. We see Tom Kench being banned out too, so they are worried about that flex too from the Karma. We do see Asia still being up and open if you want to blind pick that for the mid lane. Does nullify the flex pick for the top lane with the set, but they can still go jungle too, so there's still a lot of possibilities open for this draft.
I would assume it would be an immediate mid lane pick on the Azir. I don't see any reason not to do it if it is left open by this point. I think it will be pretty uncontested in midsection. They'll be forced to go Corki, is what Magic Felix would normally go in that scenario. And then you know that you have mid lane priority, and that's pretty bad for the Graves. I don't see any reason not to opt into it. This makes me wonder if the Kalista is flexed to top.
I like that we earlier today talked about finally we're going to see these two teams getting tested, and I want to see Unforgiving be put to the test, because this guy had a lot of hype going into the week one. Question is, can he maintain this hype and actually the pressure coming when you're playing on Munster Rugby Gaming against a threat like Fnatic too?
I'm interested to see how the Orianna goes here. I actually think it can work into the Karma as well. And you do have a ball delivery system here already in the form of Set. It will aid the Blitzcrank. It will obviously be able to create space for the Kalista. Curious that Azir has not really shown up, but maybe they favor Orianna to Karma matchup over the Azir one. Now, with the Nautilus picked, I actually doesn't answer me where the Karma is going, because this could very easily be a mid lane Nautilus setting up for the Graves. But you have to be able to play the first 3 levels very easily. I am now slightly more confused than I was beforehand for sure. Is this a Karma top into Set with Nautilus supporting Galio mid? That would be my immediate assumption. You have very good mixed damage then on both top and mid with the Galio Karma plus Graves combos. And bot lane will have a lot of setup, but you are starting to seed more and more when it comes to the Kalista Blitzcrank lane.
This Karma into Set top lane matchup was actually something Pride played last split, so I could see it being opted into it. Although looks like Munster are not going to let that happen, and they opt into the Aatrox. So I guess we're going to see where everything pans out. A lot of flex is brought in the later stages by Fnatic Rising, but ultimately I'm not too convinced they're actually answering what Munster has, especially in terms of the Blitzcrank. It is going to be a threat.
I actually like this if they do throw the Karma into bot, though, because you will actually have priority. Okay, so you're going to have priority on 2 lanes either way, maybe. I would be lying if I said I can simulate 100% in my head how Karma versus Aatrox early game will go, but it does feel to me like you will have a lot of options in mid section, in top section, and you potentially have options in bot section for early priority as well with Varus Nautilus, though I'm not so sure about Nautilus early level 1 trades with the Varus, but that will be open to you on the first item back. So I think Dan does have freedom to do a lot here. It's actually not a bad draft from either side.
Yeah, I'm really looking into the early game too, because I think it's so defined, especially for the Munster Rugby gaming bot lane. You really need to get that Kalista going. We saw it with huge success against the M&M roster, but yeah, let's not bash that roster too much more. It was a stomp from them too, so I'm really excited to see how this Kalista is going to pan out. Oh, and if they can make her work in the late game too, because I feel like we haven't seen that outside of Munster Rugby gaming.
Dan, any closing thoughts on the draft?
I mean, we expected this to be a close match. I think the draft doesn't really put one side massively in advantage. Comes down to how do they utilize the tools. I do have my eyes on Hiva for this one, the Blitzcrank. They early opted into that one, put 2 bans, even with the Karma Flex being open against Bravado. So a lot of confidence to be in him being a driving force. And I think it's important because, as Veteran said, Dan in this situation can be an absolute menace.
Absolutely. Well, our casters are ready for our final game of the day. Hit Rain and Trouble, take it away.
Thank you very much, Excandro. Hello and welcome back to the caster desk as we're getting ready to go into our 4th and final game of the day. We got highlighted, we got excited about this one, didn't we, Trouble, at the beginning of today's matches? Obviously, we started out with XL versus Riddle, 2 of the top teams in their group, and now a Munster Rugby versus Fnatic Rising, 2 of the favorites within their group as well. And we're Tricked just getting their win over Barrage. Tricked are now 2-0. And the winner of this will also go 2-0. So it's a really bad place to be dropping this game, because you've already got Tricked on a pretty good trend so far.
And also we have to remember that Trick was not one that these teams considered to be in the top 2 or even 3 in the group. But I think this is most likely going to be a support showdown. Both of these teams showed ultimate respect to Bravado and Hiva with multiple bans. And I think this is pretty much telegraphed from like solo queue as well. You want to
This is cheeky.
Oh, no.
Munster is sneaking through.
No.
Be careful. Stebex is just playing bait right now. They don't even know what's happening. They're going to jump Hiva in, but the damage is there.
No.
A massive taunt! And Bravado finds first blood. They're looking for Unforgiven, though. Do they have that hook in time? They're looking to chase him down. Dan is on that hunt. Hiva over the wall. Dan jumps forward. Gets some damage off onto Hiva. Hiva's trying to clear the wall. He's unable to do so. He flashes forward. The rest of the team follow up. Fnatic find 2. X-Matty gets the kill.
Oh, that is disastrous for Munster Rugby right there. Unforgiven thinking he can Q through the wall, but he wasn't able to burn his flash as well as going down. And Hiva, flashless, could potentially be bullied around in the lane as well. That is so bad starting up here for Munster Rugby and so good from Fnatic. They group everyone up. It's like, guys, it's the solo queue blitzcrank. And that was beautifully set up right there in the bush. A literal Fnatic bush in that bot quadrant of the jungle.
Beautiful, beautiful stuff there. Dan's now actually going for an invade onto Maxwell. Heaver and Unforgiven making their way over, but Heaver's half health. He's going to Hex Flash into the bush. Actually just goes forward. Maxwell's looking to get that damage back in return. Here comes Xmatty trying to find the turnaround. Sevix jumps in forward, but Bravado gets hooked. This game is just chaos. Unforgiven gets a double kill on the Kalista.
So what do we take away from this? Do not enter your opponent's jungle because you end up losing 2 players. Munster Rugby invaded the bot quadrant of Dan's jungle, they lose 2. Then Fnatic invade the bot quadrant of Maxlor's jungle, they end up losing 2. Just don't invade, guys. It's easy. It's simple.
I was just going to kind of sing praises about how good that the start of the game was for Xmatty getting a kill and assist on Varus, the champion who, with this lethality build, has a very cheap item spike in the Umbral Glaive. He's gonna do so much damage. Let's have a little look at this kind of misplay by Dan. I don't think he even stole it. Yeah, Maxwell was able to secure it, so the gold of the blue buff didn't even go to him.
All right, so you have to see that Xmatty is a little bit greedy down there, wants to push the wave, get that level 2, and then join the fight. But Munster Rugby was the first one in the rotation. Sebex as well completely abandons mid lane to go and help make sure that Maxwell secures that blue buff. And not only did they make sure that he did, they also got 2 kills, very crucially, onto Unforgiven's Kalista. You want to have the early game pressure on that straight away to try and bully away, like you mentioned, the Varus, who has a very cheap build way into spiking and wanting to fight even more. Now, of course, there were slight nerfs onto the Q of the Varus and how hard it scales with the AD, but I don't think they are relevant enough for them to be enough of a nerf to not prioritize the pick.
Yeah, still does a pretty massive amount of damage. The nerfs themselves were fairly light as well. So, okay here for Xmatty, at least he didn't die. He's going to catch this wave. He's down pretty significantly in CS, but partly just the fact that Unforgiven was just terrifying for him to step up on. He will actually catch out on that CS deficit with almost perfect farming under the tower, dropping 1.
Oh, come on, man. You just jinxed it.
Oh, man. He was doing pretty good right until that last one and then just cancelled the auto attack. Now, 8 seconds until Ocean Drake is spawning up here. Looks like Dan's just going to go back to base and maybe we'll see some kind of priority get put down on this. Having a look at the little vision, there's a pink ward that just got placed inside the jungle of Munster, although they did see him move through on the shrine for the Herald.
If you go really close to the wall like observers, thank you observers for showing us this, you don't get spotted if you literally hag that right wall right there. So I do not think that Dan actually got spotted putting down that pink ward. And what I want to give props to, though, is the bot lane of Munster got a really nice cheat recall down there. They pushed in the wave, and because Xmatty had to shove that to get even in CS, that means that now the Kalista has secured herself the boots, which this attacks, with this movement speed will equal to attack speed. As she can move faster, she can auto attack faster as well.
Yeah. Xmatty is very, very tentative in this lane right now.
Look how much Heaver is providing in this lane. They don't know where he is. He sneakily used his Hex Fast to get behind that wall. And now because Xmatty and Bravado have no clue where Heaver might be, they have to respect that. And it's not just them. Everyone on the map needs to respect that right now because you don't know where the Blitzcrank is. Well,
oh, he just they gave it away. Bravado's going to take the hook. He can try and get away if he can, but he's already too low. They're trying to pump some damage in back, but that is a massive phase breaker. Maxwell secures the kill. Heaver, like you said, just providing so much to the lane, so much pressure, so much fear into Fnatic. Magic Felix now going to take some poke from Sebex, although it looks like Magic Felix looks to turn it around with a big taunt. Himself a little bit of damage, but they're rotating Heaver and Maxlaw over.
Oh, that was so well calculated by the side of Munster, and now they're looking to find Xmatty as well.
Yeah, the exhaust is on. Xmatty has to flash away. Heaver misses out just about. The turret shot comes down. Dan has found out Max Law. There is a shield available to Max Law. But with the phase rush, he is just bolting out of there. Oh, lordy. Maddie, that was close.
Okay, so this is a game that technically for you as a play-by-play, you must absolutely love to cast. We are 7 minutes in with 5 kills and literally a bunch of summoners burned because no one can stop fighting on this map. Ultimately, the winners right here from all these back and forth should be Fnatic because they are keeping the Graves and the Nautilus in the river. They could potentially start the Dragon as well as the Munster bot lane has to reset to get back to lane. Or they might look for a cheeky mid lane.
They may do. Looks like they think the better of it. So based on this Orianna, one of the things that when we were doing our prep for today, you were talking to me a little bit about the Orianna and the power of the kind of stall that Orianna offers. She obviously scales really well with great damage, but it's the stalling capability she also offers. What are you like? Obviously, you've been wanting to see this all day, so now we finally get to see it. What are your thoughts?
I just find that Orianna is a very easy blind pick. The sort of the same way I feel about Zoe, but Orianna also provides you with a lot of utility because she has the shields and because she's towards that build of Deathcap and the Seraphs, of course. She scales really well, not just with her shields, but also with her damage. So she provides utility while she can literally burst you from 100 to 0 at the 2-item power spike. So I really like this champion because a lot of times, even now on the NLC, we've seen teams not necessarily win with the Orianna, but they're just able to stall and create space for the team or even keep games alive solely because of that pick. And of course, having the Kalista and the Orianna ball, it's gonna be so hard for Xmati on such an immobile ADC to position himself around a team fight and try to find the correct position for him to not die or not get hit.
Pride!
Nice, Pride.
Good steal there. Fnatic, they decided they weren't going to go for the Herald. They went for the Dragon, and now their contest is in this bot lane. Looks like they're just trying to trade out some plates here. This should just be first turret blood going over to Munster Rugby, as they will take down this tower after giving Hiva who wants to get that gold. And with that, it's a 2,000 gold lead, here or thereabouts, over to the side of Munster. They will actually get a second charge out here. They may actually get more than just the charge. They may get the tower, though Pride is making his way over on the Karma. Has a little bit of wave clear available to him.
He could get dived here as well. No one is stopping that
Pride
Monster bot lane.
Yep. That's just going to be another tower. Fnatic just not really playing respect there to the Herald charge, and that will cost them another tower. Now, Xmati still getting some free time in the bot lane. He's trying to get some gold in his pocket, and he may just get himself a turret in response at least, and a lot of that is solo gold to him. And for the moment, Sevx actually is the one who's getting ganked as Bravado. You got to land those hooks, mate.
Oh,
Sevx
that was
able to put
scary.
the distance out.
Sevx knew. Sevx had flash there and he didn't use it because he knew that he could juke it. You know, sometimes they say the best juke you can do is actually to not juke at all, especially at this level that the guys are playing, because they should be so good at juking, right? But if you don't juke at all, then you get into the mindset of your opponent.
Well, looks like the lane stops to come through here. Xmati heading back towards that bot side. He's quite uncomfortable there, but Unforgiven making his way down now. They've got that big play top side, and we can take stock of the items. Unforgiven now got his components for his Blade of the Ruined King that hasn't finished up. Xmati's got the Umbral Glaive and 2 additional longswords for himself. So he's got a pretty decent spike at the moment. We are seeing in the top lane also a bit of poke going down. They do find themselves a pick onto Xmati. Unforgiven has the ultimate to buy him out. The hook once again by Bravado goes wide by a hair's breadth. Unable to find the pick onto Hiva.
It's one of these hooks that's like, yes, I hit the ADC, but you're not necessarily at the best position possible for your team to follow it up. And then Dan is still sneaking around the sides. Remember, Hiva does not have that flash, so he could be susceptible to going down, but they are going to back off from this one. You mentioning Mati going towards the bot side, of course. There is a Dragon in 1 and 40, and also there's no other lane for him to chill because the top lane has literally been shattered from that first Rift Herald. And of course, in the mid lane, it's Magi Felix, who's not going anywhere at this point because it's a pretty safe lane to farm against the Orianna. Whilst for Varus, it wouldn't be that much so. We are going to see them starting to set up the vision, of course, because Munster Rugby took these resets. That means that Fnatic are free to enter a little bit further into Maxlow's bot quadrant of the jungle, get some deeper vision down, and make sure they are ready for when this dragon spawns, because they already have one. Getting a soul, that'd be great for them.
xMatty will proc the ward. They find it. There is a control ward behind them, so they have to be careful for like a TP flank. Shikari will have his teleport soon. Sebex does have his. Multiple members coming over. That pink ward's still very much alive. The flank potential very much there. They will take this tower. It looks like Fnatic actually the ones who commit the teleport. They're looking for the ultimate onto Maxlaw. Gets a 2-man knockup. Hiva gets rooted in place as he does get dragged away. They're trying to continue to chase. The collateral damage by Dan's enough to secure the kill. Fnatic turning up the heat a little bit in the bot lane. And now they can look towards this dragon.
I'm a little bit confused. I think that was a little bit of miscommunication from Munster right there, because Hiva goes in for the hook. Sebex is like full mana, full HP. He does his teleport available.
Good taunt by Magic Felix. He's trying to buy some space. Uses the Proto Belt to put some distance out there from Maxlaw. He's able to get away.
Yeah, I'm still not sure what happened right there. Sebex never ends up TPing. Shikari, of course, didn't have his up and available, but they pull the trigger onto Hiva, and then Sebex never turns up right there. Although, we talked about reset timers, Fnatic take one, and they're most likely gonna lose this Cloud Drake.
One Drake apiece, though. I think they're okay trading that out for the moment. It looks like the swap now for xMatty to go into the mid lane is there, as they've been able to take that turret. Although Pride is having a pretty rough go of it top lane. Every time we look up there, now that the tower's down, he has to play pretty careful. Once again, we're getting the moonwalk replays here.
Oh, yes.
Unforgiving. There we go. It's in... Oh, no, we're going straight back again. Woo!
Hey, if it's fun the first time, it's fun the second time as well. You said that you can't get enough of seeing them, so our producers made sure to show you twice.
Although that one's a little bit stacked, it's just people walking backwards. I love it when things are healing off auto attacks or damage, like a Varus arrow actually spawning minions.
Or someone coming back from the dead because he got auto attacked by someone. All right, so you said that Unforgiven had a couple of components for his build of the Ruin King. Now that it's completed, you get that slight one-item spike. Although, yes, xMatty onto the Varus has the Umbral Blade and the Executioners to stop any healing from coming through versus the Aatrox and so on if they choose to fight all together. That means, though, that the Kalista, as a 1v1, can take onto xMatty right now, or even on the 2v2. The problem right now...
Picked up for the side of Fnatic. Dan's going for the lethality build on the Graves. They're feeling pretty comfortable with their current spikes and looking to up the tempo a little bit and go for this Rift Herald, but Pride's getting chunked out, and this actually could just be a give over onto the Herald. Hiva Hex flashes away to safety. They're trying to keep the Herald alive without actually losing it here. They are going to charge forward. That's going to be the ultimate onto Hiva for the moment. The chains actually go wide. They do get the heroic entrance and knock up onto Maxlaw. The Herald will reset, and Dan's not going to put the damage to Shikari. Shikari does try to turn it around, but Fnatic's health bars just vastly outweighing the side of Munster as they just get chunked down, and Fnatic quite happy to take that trade. They're going to get the Rift Herald. They do have to be careful, though, because their mid lane turret could be conceded here. Although, with that arrow over the wall, xMatty is able to come in and defend. Fnatic, playing that very calm and collected there. As now it looks like they're going to rotate towards this top side of the Herald. Try and push their advantage here. As Bravado's hunting down Shikari. Shikari is able to get his way out, though. Let's have a little look at that once again.
Oh, we're getting the bot lane dive, if I'm not wrong. That's a little bit after party, after Hiva has tried to go in. Sebex does have the TP, never pulls it because it's too late. The tower has already gone down. I would please like to get a replay of the previous fight, because you will see that Unforgiven is playing very upfront and personal. Look at him. Hiva gets knocked up. Unforgiven is like, right, this is my time. But when the Galio drops in together with Bravado's Nautilus, Unforgiven can just not break through that front line and never ends up reaching anyone on the back. So all in all, I will reply to the fact that you're telling me, oh, well, look at that. He's going for the...
Bravado gonna get hooked. He has to flash away. That was so close.
So back to Dan building the Armor Pen build. it is so easy for you to get close to a Kalista when she has been zoned by Magifelix's Galio and the Nautilus from Bravado, because you saw how she couldn't necessarily move all over the place because she was zoned by them too. So the Graves going for that lethality build is going to be so much easier for him to reach that backline and hit Unforgiven. It also shows that he believes he's gonna get super far ahead at this point, which he is. He's 30 CS ahead, he has 2 kills and 2 assists to his name. So technically, yes, he is ahead and he can go for the more greedy build, if you will.
All right, well, looks like they're pushing up here.
Shikari was like, I got the perfect flank. Nope, I'm
he just got flanked by the enemy. They didn't see him, luckily. So at least Shikari can take that. Now that Herald's still in the pocket of Dan. They got that turret down. They could look for their last tier 1 now in this top side. Looks like Dan's going to go for a quick recall. He's got a bit of time until that Herald wears out. Probably just going to spend up some last of this gold. I love Mountain Soul, man. Just gives you those extra walls to hide behind. Zebex had no idea Magifelix was recalling behind that wall. You can see, though, Dan making his way up towards the mid lane. They've got the prio. They've got the pressure here. And this should just be a turret crumbling to Fnatic's push. Eva coming forward to see if he can land himself a hook, but the speed up from Pride just means it's so hard to actually step forward here. Now, we've got 13 seconds until this Mountain Drake spawns up. Mountain Soul for Munster actually is really, really nice into the poke comp that Fnatic have got here with this Varus. Looks like Munster going to try and contest.
That's a nice Herald. You bring out Munster from hiding because they have to reply to that mid Herald unless they want to lose their mid lane tower. And I think they actually are.
Eva gets a hook onto 1. They try to get the damage out. Dan has to flash away. The Fate's Call does come down as it's a 2-man knockup. Zebex on the flank, though, does have that ultimate. Eva gets taunted. Watch for the shockwave. Xmaddie and Pride playing with fire. The blind comes down from Dan, and the arrow will do a little bit of poke work here. All 5 members from both teams are here. They have that ball delivery system with Max Law and the shockwave. But for now, Munster are feeling a little bit hesitant to step forward. But they do want to go. They want to contest right now. They don't have the ready carry, and it looks like the Dragon will just be given up to Fnatic right now, and they will just trade out Dragon for the tower. Although they're looking for Bravado. Bravado's maybe to get himself caught there. The blind's pretty big. Fnatic punches the damage out as Munster have got them pinned. They're in their jungle. The hook passes onto Magifelix. Magifelix gets some damage onto Hiva. Xmaddie gets a snipe off the arrow as he's trying to kite for the moment. The shockwave lands onto Pride. In goes the showstopper. They're trying to get the damage off of the Xmaddie, but he's still alive. He's still sniping members left, right, and center. The hail of arrows goes down, and it's a double kill for Dan. He hunts Unforgiven, but Unforgiven is out of there. Fnatic Rising come up big.
And Munster is playing right into Fnatic's arms. Fnatic is opening their arms, and Munster is just giving them kills. They pop the Rift Herald in the mid lane. Munster does not commit too many people to it to stop it before it gets the charge. They lose their mid lane tower. Fnatic want to do the Dragon. What do Munster do? They conceded and they go into the mid lane. They don't commit there either. Rather, they go back because they know that Fnatic has less ultimates than them, and they commit into a fight that's not favorable for them. Zebex never gets the perfect position right there to use his ball accordingly to try and zone Fnatic away, and everyone keeps diving in one after the other, which is the perfect scenario for that lethality Varus to shine.
Wonderful stuff there. 206 on the Varus right now. Got the glaive, got the Ghost Blade. And Execution is calling as well. Just to heal, do a little bit of that healing coming out. They're even going to give him the blue buff as Magifelix doesn't feel like he necessarily needs it right now. Fnatic pretty much geared up in a good position right now at the moment as they got themselves 2,000 gold lead over Munster. What do Munster need to do, Trouble?
This is what I'm trying to think here. I'm trying to think a scenario where Munster Rugby do scale more than Fnatic at this point, and he was getting chased away. I do think that the common denominator for the whole Munster here is the Orianna yet again. One good shockwave lands, you try to hit Xmaddie or done, and you can actually change the whole team fight and turn it around. Together with Unforgiven dancing around and keeping the 2 tanks in the front line busy, you could see a great fight happening, but all these things have to be matched together and put in so harmonically into a team fight that I haven't seen Munster able to actually pull that off. We saw them losing three big things in the previous fight. Their mid lane tower, the dragon, and the team fight all together while not contesting anything and not competing for anything on the map. So it feels like the decision making is a little bit split.
Shikari feeling the pressure in that bot lane as well as Fnatic grouping up here mid side. Sevix does have that shockwave, so it's always a potential threat, but this should just be the end of the tier 2 mid side. Xmadi won't actually stick around to stay and get it. Like I said, the threat of Sevix is still very much alive. He's got the Archangels. He's got a needlessly large rod as Maxlaw. Actually looking to hunt down some of these Fnatic members. They do have the Hex Flash. They get the Face Breaker off. The arrow looks to spread. Xmadi has to be so careful. Shockwave still available here for the moment. Sevix holding that. Stan joins into the team and so does Pride. Magic Felix onto that flank as well. And Munster are just routed. They look for the play onto Fnatic and they're unable to do so.
That blind from Dan was so crucial right there because all Maxwell wanted to do was press R together with Sebek pressing R. The ball was ready, it was mounted onto Maxwell. All they needed was that one push of a button, and that blind comes down clutch from Dan. Dan has had an insane performance into this game, and I do feel like all the Fnatic pieces come together in this puzzle, and it looks so good and it looks so clean. And I feel like if Munster want to come back into this game, are gonna have to play even more clean, which at this point is gonna be extremely hard, taking in consideration how it's worked out so far for them.
Well, we got 40 seconds until that dragon spawns up. Could
Eyes
be a
on that
second
death
one for
cup.
Fnatic, second
Eyes
mountain
on that
anyway.
death cup, Heat Rain.
It's getting close. That is going to be a big old spike.
Around 1k.
Magic Felix, I don't think he has anywhere to ult to, so he's probably just in for a lot of hurt here. The teleport's going to come down. He's trying to buy some time. Gets himself a big old taunt off, and in comes down with the collateral damage. Shockwave only lands onto one. Fnatic looks to turn the fight around. Munster are just annihilated as they go for a pick. They lose a member. The arrow goes a little bit wide from Xmadi. He's not able to find it. Fnatic getting a pick onto Maxlaw just as Dragon spawns.
And I'm going to use a quote right here from a league champions and say that the hunters become the hunted. You see constantly Hiva trying to make this place, trying to create something for nothing from his team, and it's just not working because Fnatic are so good at piling up all together. You think you got Magic Felix on the side? Well, guess what? He has 4 more mates, and he survives long enough with his Hourglass and the HP from his Proto Belt to stay alive for an entire time until the teleport comes down from the Karma and until the rest of the people are there. And I don't think that Maxla's ulti right there was the correct play. I would have rather seen Maxla sacrifice himself and ult Magic Felix away rather than back onto his own team. Oh, here we go. Ooh, Unforgiven saves his support once more. Oh boy, that is a big fight. Unforgiven has not been touched.
Fnatic get everything. How was I muted for that fight?
Don't worry, there's still to go. Unforgiven is alive.
Unforgiven is going to get his way out, though. He is okay to base, although Bravado looks to hunt him down. Fnatic will take Baron. Bravado just lets him execute.
Just checking. That's all right. We'll let one go. That was a huge fight for Fnatic. They have the better items right now. They have the better itemization. They have everything they need. They have the shield. They have the engage. They have the survivability. They've got everything. The point, click, engage, they have it on the Nautilus. They have the Barrel just putting piles and piles of damage. They've got Magic Felix, who's a mage, but in disguise. Because he's tanky, but he also deals damage. And then here comes Dan after that. Hey, the moonwalk. Let's go. And
Into
then
the time
comes
stop.
Dan, pumping so much damage, while, you know what, on the other hand, you have Pride, and he's like, it's fine, guys, I'll shield you, I'll get all the assists, you stay alive, I get to win. It's a win-win scenario.
Eva looking to see if he can find a hook over the wall. Does actually land it onto Bravado. Unforgiven's going to put some damage in. The stone blade gets used. This is Fnatic looking for the turnaround. Unforgiven goes down as Magifelix sways him with a Proto Belt. Fnatic find another. In comes the taunt from Magifelix. He's unable to get it, but look for Bravado over the flanks. Trying to find something onto Sevex. Gets slowed and Shockwave taken down. But Magifelix will answer out with a taunt onto him. Pride will secure the kill. Fnatic rising. Answer out once again.
It's just beautiful stuff. They're just running them down at this point. They're 6,000 gold into the lead. They have the Baron, they have the minions, they have the damage, they have the items, they have everything. They have the confidence. All of it is in that Fnatic kit. All of the pieces have fallen together so harmonically, and they are taking Munster down. Can they defend?
That is the question here. The turret's already fallen. Fnatic just looking to mop up a few more kills. Unforgiven has to make a miracle happen to save this. That's going to be the ultimate coming up from Maxwell, doing some serious damage to the Fnatic members. The Nexus is left open, but Heaver's going to fall. Fnatic in a whitewash. Take out Munster. 27 minutes on the clock.
We talked about how this was going to be the game that will establish dominance in this group. We talked about how these teams can potentially be the only top 2 teams before we saw Trick play today, and Fnatic are pretty much here to stay. They say, yeah, sure, top 2. We only see a top 1, and that's us. We also talked about how it was going to be a better jungler and a better support wins, and it felt like Fnatic came in with the better duo this day. Maxlo did look a little bit lost, at least for me, in the early game. Hiva was trying to take fights that he had no reason taking, getting hooks underneath the enemy tower where he can't really be followed, expanding the Kalista ulti, and then paying with her life for not having it later on. So one thing snowballed another. Fnatic snowballed themselves to victory, and that's all she wrote.
For me, I felt like that game answered, maybe started to answer some of the questions, because looking into yesterday's matches, last week's matches, sorry, Fnatic didn't look particularly great in their one game. They were challenged pretty heavily by Barrage. Even when they got ahead, there was still moments where they kind of made some messy decisions, and that game didn't seem the case there for Fnatic. They were able to get themselves a clean win over Munster, and overall was a good showing for them. Now, guys, we are going to cut to a quick break, and when we're back with the analyst desk to break that game down. So don't go anywhere. We'll see you after the break.
I said it. Didn't I say it? I think I said it. Fnatic wins this one, and you know what? That's not only the Fnatic prediction, right? That's all of them today, all right? And let's dive into this game, because, goddamn, it's so nice, all right? Listen, we finally get to see the Varus too, and I feel like we get to see it in all his pride and why he has been so fierce. And oh my god, I nearly forgot about this level 1. Can we talk about how creative that was by Magic Felix to walk out to bait the rest of Munster Rugby Gaming into that bush, and then they just equalize on it. Unforgiving with an unlucky pathing with the Kaiser jumps here. No, Kalista jumps here. I felt like the game became a bit of back and forth after that, especially the invade that was extremely butched by Fnatic too. So it does still look like we're seeing some issues with the team, but when they finally got the snowball rolling again in the mid game, they did not stop. And these are the team fights that we're witnessing right now, when Munster Rugby Gaming just never really stood a chance and was playing on the back foot for the whole time.
I mean, even if you're planning to go with Kalista, right? Like, why leave the Varus open? Like, that is amazing to me. If I knew Varus was going to be open, I would just vote for blue side every single game. But as is, only Goldberg has the telepathy to be able to understand that Varus will be left open in this particular game. Like, but it's amazing to me. It's such a unique champion in terms of strengths right now. It is a champion that doesn't have anywhere near the level of economy required of any other AD carry, including Kalista in the game. It gave them so many opportunities. It allowed them, with the Karma pick, to open into another Graves carry composition. And the moment that they were able to snowball off that and be first on all of these objectives, there was nothing that the enemy could do. Because not only is Varus a very heavy poke threat, but it's a very heavy disengage threat at the same time. The composition ended up going much better than I think Fnatic could have possibly expected. I have no idea why all these options left open draft. I didn't see anything created from Munster Rugby Gaming in the vein of a counter pick or any sort of compositional counter to them. Like, oh, what happened here from them? This is not the performance of Munster Rugby Gaming that I expected, or anyone but Goldberg apparently expected. They can't make these kinds of mistakes. They want to continue contesting as a top 2 team. Right now, it just looks like Fnatic number 1.
You got anything to add, Orcs? I know you were kind of discussing heavily in the game.
I think he covered it on that one. I think ultimately
he covered it. Ultimately, it usually does.
Ultimately, you know, we were talking about the Kalista, we were talking about the Blitzcrank as well. I wanted to see Hiva freed up to move about. The Varus really never facilitated that. And we said, if you're not getting assistance from the lanes, if the lanes are Munster aren't finding success, if Hiva isn't freed up, Dan is just going to outpath Max Law. He's going to come out hugely ahead in terms of farm, and he was. Ended up 100 CS up on the Graves, ends up becoming an absolute monster, and the team was there to follow up. And I just think clearly Munster kind of got a little bit lost in what they were trying to do that game.
Yeah, well, honestly, it looked like Fnatic from the mid game just took over completely, and I actually have Fnatic's top laner with me to chat. So let's have a brief chat with you, Pride. And actually, nice to see you again. I think I haven't seen you since we were on that podcast together a while back.
Yeah, we were on a Fnatic Live with all those weird
so
questions, right?
yeah. They gave me the questions to ask.
Yeah, I'm not judging. Don't worry about it.
No, but honestly, good to see you again, mate, and congratulations on the win.
Yeah, thank you.
Obviously, the Barrage game gave you probably a bit more trouble than you were expecting last week. What was it? Did you guys come out of that game and have to look back at some of maybe the mistakes that you made, or what was the mentality coming out there?
Well, we obviously had a lot of, or a few, I guess, major mistakes that led to Castle being able to free farm and like scale up to his level 16. But overall, I don't think the game, personally, I don't think the game was particularly bad. It was more just a game of, we had a lot of opportunities that we didn't use. For example, we had a set in the mid lane, and there was like a huge wave on the bot lane crashing, and it never even occurred to us to potentially rotate with the set and the Graves into the bot lane for whatever reason. So it was mostly just missed opportunities, I think, rather than straight up bad plays or bad calls. It's just we weren't very mindful of what to do during the game, I think, which is a bit uncharacteristic as well for us.
Sure. I mean, you guys have looked one of the cleanest teams that we've had across the last, 2 splits of UK and now NLC. Obviously, going into this matchup versus Munster, this was a pretty big match. We kind of talked about it as being likely our match of the day, given the gravitas of the 2 teams weighing up against each other. What was your game plan approaching Munster? Did you have a specific way of playing into them in mind, or was it just play your usual Fnatic style?
I think we had a few like scenarios in the draft. They ended up giving us pretty much everything we wanted, including like we expected them to take the Karma when we take the Varus, and they instead opted for the Kalista, which I think is not even a good matchup for the Kalista. So in the end, the draft went pretty much exactly the way we expected it. We also expected the Blitzcrank coming out from Hiva. The only question mark was the set, and in draft already we knew that their late game is only Orianna pretty much. So if you can farm up safely until then, Graves heavily outfarm set, we should be perfectly fine in the game.
Yeah, and your draft was incredibly flexible too. I mean,
yeah, we could at all points send anyone anywhere pretty much, kind of.
Exactly. Veteran was slowly melting when we were going through the draft because he was trying to work out where everybody was going.
Yeah.
But you eventually played that the Karma into the Aatrox matchup, and we were actually wondering about how that matchup goes. So how does Karma into Aatrox go in your opinion?
I think there's some room for the Aatrox to solo kill the Karma potentially after he gets some levels, but mostly it's just a Karma favored matchup with Karma shoving the Aatrox in. For sure, you get outscaled on the sideline, especially with the items that you're building. Like Athenes and Ardent are not gonna be the best into the Aatrox, obviously, for the pure 1v1. So the matchup is very farm heavy, to be honest, with not much interaction for either side until later stages of the game.
And obviously, you never really got to a point where you were in a side lane versus him, just because, as you'd expect with the Karma, you're looking to group and make work with that. So you played it really well, and it was a very clean game, mate. So obviously, you guys looking like you've got high prospects, as we would expect with Fnatic rising in the NLC, and we wish you all the best for your future matchups. Thanks for chatting.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it just sounds like a Veteran that it kind of went to Penang. I'm seeing your face here. Let's talk to me about your face.
I'm not quite sure the distinction being made between like we didn't do that many mistakes yet last week. It was more that we just had no clue what we were doing in game on any aspects. Not quite sure the distinction being made there. And the fact that they look so hopeless around the map in terms of how to execute a competition was the worries that we had for Fnatic coming in. But like he said, they ended up getting everything that they wanted, and they were able to execute off of that. I still have question marks over Fnatic anyway. Like, look, I'm a discount code Veteran for 10% off Fnatic gear kind of guy. Obviously, I favor these guys. I favor them for the championship. But I have to say, I still do have open questions about this team. If they don't get a draft where they get everything and have to trade nothing, maybe they look a bit more vulnerable than today. I have vastly more questions for Munster Rugby Gaming, that I'm more Fnatic favored looking at this through a Fnatic lens anyway. I just hope that we see a lot more from Munster Rugby Gaming next time in terms of draft. We've had 2 drafts today that feel completely one-sided. This was one of them. Dusty was another one of them. I hope there isn't too many of those later on, because these are very, very good players still, no matter what mistakes that they make. And if you give them this kind of draft, this should be the result every time.
Yeah, we could talk about the draft too, but we did also make some key points today, what we really needed from Fnatic to actually make them work as a team. So we were talking about specifically solo laners, about how they were able to open up that. They go back to the classic here with the Galio in the mid lane instead, and just really setting up every team fight for them, really setting up the 2v2 if they would like to up into that one. And at the same time, we're actually looking at a stable bot lane here. In the beginning, I was afraid that, okay, I say stable, the only thing that was not stable was that invade. After that, we go back to a more stable unit, and they can afford that loss because obviously they have the Warriors who's got the really cost-efficient item building, but it's just really the pressure being coming through there. Pride just doing his job in the top side. He doesn't really necessarily avoid any pressure or is a victim of any ganks, so he can just let Dan do whatever he wants here, and that was what we said. If Dan is just able to run away with the game to get leads for his team so he can just team fight like they did here in the later stages of the game, they are able to win. Now, question is, as Veteran said, will they do the same if they have a more unfavorable draft?
Yeah, I think those are questions that I guess we'll get to answer as the season progresses and we see more and more of those matchups. Let's take a look at some of the highlights from today. Obviously, we've had 4 pretty entertaining matches. If you're Goldbog, they went all the way that you expected, but some of them were definitely upsets. Specifically, we're looking back now at the this one that we just saw, the Movistar Riding versus Fnatic game. I feel like we've kind of touched on everything that we needed to touch on here. Obviously, definitely a draft issue, as Veteran pointed out. But anything, I think that the Fnatic coordination and team fights look really clean as well, Ox.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was definitely a more coordinated team than we saw in their first match. I think this is something we sometimes do see from Fnatic, is that in certain games in the split, they don't look as convincing, has been their legacy in the UK. And then when it comes to the more important matches, they do have this tendency to step up the level. I think the draft was a big factor. You give 3 prior lanes with Graves for Dan, and he's always going to have a good time. And then obviously we had that Eminem Dusty game, which Well, it's just brutal. I think just the image in front of you, the Poppy solo killing the Calista speaks for itself, and the scoreline of the Azir. I think Fnatic definitely are winners for today in terms of proving themselves over Munster, and M&M is just really a big question mark.
And obviously, if we could... Oh, sorry, go Bug, yeah.
Yeah, also some of the things you realize while watching these replay is that the competition is just really higher than we first anticipated in this league. I feel like some of the teams are making some really high-level plays, or at least trying to execute them. So it gives me high expectations how this league and season is going to pan out the longer we get into the weeks.
I want to give a specific shout out to a mid laner that we have highlighted a little bit, but definitely gets kind of left underneath when we talk about the big names. Evan, honestly, I haven't seen more impact from a relatively new mid laner to the scene than I have seen from him. Even in scenarios where I would expect other mid laners to feel incredibly pressured, this guy finds windows to control the map. He's doing the job of 2 players already right now, even in scenarios where he's being heavily camped. It's incredible to watch, and I'm actually really excited to see how he develops more along with the rest of Tricked, because as Goldberg discussed, like the whole play is wide open. I want to see what happens when this guy goes against Magic Felix. I want to see what happens when this guy goes against Hatrix. Maybe this guy is like the next big thing, because honestly, I watch him and I'm thinking, if I assign him a characteristic of another player, it would be Doinby, right? Super carry Doinby, controlling the map, not really caring so much about his own lane, and finding these niche picks that enable them so much in draft and being able to execute them on stage. I'm really excited for it.
Isn't it amazing how the narrative has already shifted from week 1 to week 2, in the sense that week 1 we were like the powerhouse 4, absolutely no way, they're infallible, you know, the top, and suddenly in week 2 there is a lot more teams fighting, you know, and scrapping to be included in that top 4 position. That's what I love about the NLC, that you know, there are teams surprising us.
Can't wait for week 3 when the storyline is M&M's the best team in the league.
Yeah, look. I'll leave it on that one. Let's have a look at the standings, guys, because we have now obviously had 4 more games and we can update. Right now, Riddle leading in Division A alongside Nordavind. Nordavind yet to play, of course. They've got another game to go. Godsent tied with BTXL at 1-1 and Ents and Team Singularity down at 0-2. Let's move over to Division B. We saw more games from Division B today, so we can get a bit more of a read on this group, with Fnatic and Tricked topping the group. Dusty and Munster down at 1-1 and Barrage and M&M at 0-2. But again, let's not read a huge amount into it because we are still very early on in the season. And speaking of which, we have games tomorrow. Let's take a look at the matches that we've got coming our way tomorrow. I don't know if we've got a graphic for it. I might have just spoken too soon here, but if we don't, we'll have a look and sort of talk about those matches. Guys, there are obviously 4 new matches coming tomorrow. Any ones that you're particularly hyped about?
Yeah, I'm really hyped to see actually Nordavind now go against BTXL. I feel like we've had BTXL as a hype matchup now, but that's again because I want to continue the narrative of being tested. And this time it's not BTXL I want to see be tested, it's Nordavind, because we've seen them play against Singularity and Ents, who's arguably the weakest in the group. I want to see how Nordavind actually looks when they're playing against a team that has the right tools in their kit and actually playing League of Legends on a higher level.
Godsent versus Riddle for me. I actually am a big believer in how Godsent are setting up right now. I do think all-inning on a playstyle that's comfortable to you can be a lot more beneficial than opting in for the meta. That's what every single EU Masters champion has done so far. We don't exactly have malleable teams winning those. So I want to see how the Godsent experiment works against Riddle, because this is the only team that is playing heavily for top side. Everyone we saw today, everyone else we saw yesterday was playing very much for weak side top. Godsent, on the other hand, it's all about the Camille so far for them. Let's see what else they bring out for that with all their topside priority, and let's see what Riddle do against it, because Riddle have a lot to prove. And if Godsent are able to take on Riddle and take them to task, the league continues to close in terms of the gap between teams.
I think for me, I mean, Singularity against Ents, both these teams struggling at 2 losses apiece with no wins. Both teams had quite scrappy, chaotic games. So at bare minimum, I think it's going to be a fun one to watch, even if it may not be the highest level match that we do have tomorrow. It's going to be a great one to open the day.
Yeah, and obviously, though, it'd be great for one of those teams to get a win on the board too. And with that, guys, thank you for joining me for today. It's been a wonderful day of games. We have had mostly expected results, although obviously Goldberg will tell you they were all expected. And we will be back at the same. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow, where we can kick off with that match that Dan just mentioned. It'll be Team Singularity versus Ents. We'll see you there.